Hey everybody, it's your girl Nell. Welcome to Simply Nell's Tiny Studio. Today I will be reading snippets from Prince Harry's Fair, and I have chosen or selected a few passages that I think will be, well, it's interesting given that we are almost at the end of the festivities of coronation weekend. As you know, yesterday, King Charles III was officially crowned the King of the United Kingdom and all of its territories. Prince Harry was present for this coronation. So I thought that today I will read just a little something something from Spare that features all of the main characters from yesterday's coronation ceremony. What are your thoughts about that? All right, let's get down to it. How about we start off with the marriage of King Charles, who was then Prince Charles, and his bride to be, Camilla Parker Bowles. Now, if you recall in the last reading that we did together, Harry and William, or Willie as Harry liked to call him, were very much against the marriage of their dad and Camilla for very obvious reasons. Who wants their dad to marry his mistress? In what universe in what universe does a child want that to happen? But in this story, it does. And also in this story, she becomes queen. Go figure. So let's get started with Spare by Prince Harry. And we're going to take up the reading where Prince Harry gives us his thoughts or tells us what was going on the day that his father married Camilla. Okay, here we go. There must have been something in the air. Just as I was embarking on my new romance, Paul announced that he decided to marry. He'd asked Granny's permission and she granted it. Reluctantly, it was reported. Despite Willie and me urging him not to, Paul was going ahead. We pumped his hand, wished him well. No hard feelings. We recognized that he was finally going to be with the woman he loved, the woman he'd always loved, the woman fate might have intended for him in the first place. Whatever bitterness or sorrow we felt over the closing of another loop in Mummy's story, we understood that it was beside the point. Now, I talked about this yesterday in a video that I did about the coronation and how I felt that Meghan should have been present to stand by Harry's side as he entered the lion's den, which was Westminster Abbey. And I talked about how it was just really ironic and really sad, um, the fact given that when Prince Charles and Lady Diana Spencer married back in, I think it was 1980, 1981, when they married, we all expected the day to come where uh, Lady Diana would be queen. But it didn't happen like that. And as I said yesterday, even though we may feel some kind of ways about Camilla and the part she played in the emotional turmoil and the psychological warfare that was happening between Diana and Charles. The reality is that Charles always loved Camilla. That was the woman that he wanted to be married to. That was his soulmate. She was his person. And the fact that Queen Elizabeth was against that relationship and Prince Charles, now King Charles, did not stand up to his mother, as far as we know, or as far as we can see, because the fact of the matter is, he went on to date, become engaged to, commit to, and marry Lady Diana Spencer, who would become Princess Diana. So even though, yes, Camilla should rightly wear the title of queen, unfortunately, the way things played out in real life before all of this happened, it's just a sad, sad, big old mess. Do you know what I'm saying? Just a big old mess. And there are no winners in this story. Or are there? Let's get back to the reading. Also, we sympathize with Paul and Camilla as a couple. They taken star-crossed to new levels. After years of thwarted longing, they were now just a few steps from happiness, and new obstacles kept appearing. First, there was the controversy over the nature of the ceremony. Courtiers insisted it would have to be a civil ceremony because Paul, as future sovereign governor of the Church of England, couldn't marry a divorcee in the church. That set off a furious debate about locations. If the civil ceremony were to be held at Windsor Castle, the couple's first choice, then Windsor would first need to be licensed for civil weddings. And if that were to happen, then everyone in Britain would be allowed to have their civil weddings there. No one wanted that. The decision was therefore made that the wedding would take place at Windsor Guildhall. But then the Pope died. Bewildered, I asked Willie, what's the Pope got to do with Paul? Loads, it turned out. Paul and Camilla didn't want to get married on the same day the Pope was being laid to rest. Bad karma. Less press. More to the point, Granny wanted Paul to represent her at the funeral. It's really interesting how all of these ridiculous rules and regulations and just plain ridiculousness is going on or has been going on inside the royal family for many, many years. I mean, the Church of England was created by, I believe it was King Henry the Eighth, based on the fact that he wanted to marry a woman, yet he wanted to divorce his wife. And according to Catholicism, you cannot divorce your wife. But he wanted to divorce his wife. So he broke away from Catholicism or the Catholic Church and formed his own church, which is the Church of England, so that he could be able to go ahead and divorce his wife, Catherine, and marry his wife, Anne. Queen, who would become Queen Anne. So the Church of England, I mean, to say that you can't get married because the intendant is a divorcee, what kind of sense does that make when King Henry the Eighth was a divorcee too? People and their rules and regulations. That's why I highly discourage people from religiosity, because it absolutely makes no sense. Marry who you want to marry. Okay, back to the book. The wedding plans were changed again. Delay after delay. If you listen carefully, you could hear, wafting across the palace grounds, the shrieks and groans of despair. You just couldn't tell whose they were, the wedding planners, or Camilla's, or Paul's. Other than feeling sorry for them, I couldn't help but think that some force in the universe, Mummy, was blocking rather than blessing their union. Maybe the universe delays what it disapproves of. Remember yesterday how I was talking about how it rained and how dark it was for the coronation ceremony? Remember when I was talking about that? And remember the fact that I said that the rain, the weather was the backdrop or the main character or the theme of the whole entire coronation ceremony. Remember how I said that? And that maybe it was a way, or maybe it symbolized the universe's tears and that the universe was crying, or maybe the universe was sad. Back to the book. When the wedding did finally take place without Granny, who chose not to attend, it was almost cathartic for everyone, even me. Standing near the altar, I mostly kept my head bowed, eyes on the floor, just as I had during Mummy's funeral. But I did sneak several long peeks at the groom and the bride, and each time I thought, good for you. Though also, goodbye. I knew without question that this marriage would take Paul away from us. Not in any real sense, not in any deliberate or malicious way, but nevertheless a way. He was entering a new space, a closed space, a tightly insular space. Willie and I would see less of Paul, I predicted, and that left me with mixed feelings. I didn't relish losing a second parent, and I had complex feelings about gaining a step parent who, I believe, had recently sacrificed me on her personal PR altar. But I saw Paul smile, and it was hard to argue with that, and harder still to deny the cause. Camilla. I wanted so many things, but I was surprised to discover at their wedding that one of the things I wanted most still was for my father to be happy. In a funny way, I even wanted Camilla to be happy. Maybe she'd be less dangerous if she was happy. There are published reports that Willie and I snuck out of the church and hung just married signs on their car. I don't think so. I might have hung a sign, be happy, if I thought of it at the time. I do remember watching them drive off and thinking, they're happy. They're really happy. Damn. I like all of us to be happy. Mm. Isn't that something how when you are a child and your parents disappoint you, you still want the best for them? You still want them to be happy. I mean, Harry and Prince William were not shielded too much away from the things that was going on with their parents. And I'm sure that when his their mother died, they heard they heard about their father's affair with Camilla. They heard about their mother's feelings, and I'm quite sure that they've read in the press their mother's thoughts about the affair that King Charles III was having with Camilla. So I'm sure that it's that tug that a child feels toward a parent. I mean, this was their only living parent. So of course, Harry wanted the best for his dad, even though it came at the cost of his mother's happiness, or the cost was his mother's happiness. All right, so two, that was two of the main characters at yesterday's coronation. Let's get into the next two. And let's say this next character, he's not necessarily a part, or was not necessarily a part of the coronation festivities, and we all kind of know why. But let's get into just a little bit of this particular character, and this would be Elton John. And here is Prince Harry's recollection of the concert that he and his brother gave in honor of his mother. I think it's his mother's death or his mother's birthday, but let's just get to the book and find out. To mark the 10th anniversary of our mother's death, Willie and I organized a concert in her honor. The proceeds will go to her favorite charities and to a new charity I just launched, Cinebell. Its mission, the fight against HIV in Lesotho, particularly among children. While planning the concert, Willie and I were emotionless, all business. It's the anniversary. We need to do this. There are a million details, full stop. The venue had to be big enough, Wembley Stadium, and the tickets had to be priced right, £45, and the entertainers had to be A-list, Elton John, Duran Duran, P. Diddy. But on the night of the event, standing backstage, looking out at all those faces, feeling that pulsing energy, that pent-up love and longing for our mother, we crumbled. Then Elton walked on stage. He seated himself at a grand piano, and the place went mad. I'd asked him to sing Candle in the Wind, but he said no. He didn't want to be that morbid. He chose instead Your Song. And do you remember? I'm going to tell you something. Your Song is one of my favorite Elton John songs. As a matter of fact, it is my favorite Elton John song. And Harry quotes some of the words in his book here, but I'm going to sing it to you just a little bit. I hope you don't mind. I hope you don't mind that I put down in words how wonderful life is while you're in the world. He sang it with a twinkle and a smile, aglow with good memories. Willie and I tried for that same energy, but then photos of Mummy began flashing on the screen, each one more radiant. We went from being crumpled to being swept away. As the song ended, Elton jumped up, introduced us, their Royal Highnesses, Prince William and Prince Harry. The applause was deafening, like nothing we'd ever heard. We'd been applauded in the streets, at polo games, parades, operas, but never in a place this cavernous or in a context this charged. Willie walked out. I followed, each of us wearing a blazer and open shirt, as if we were going to a school dance. We were both frightfully nervous. On any topic, but especially on the topic of Mummy, we weren't accustomed to public speaking. In fact, we weren't accustomed to private speaking about her. But standing before 65,000 people and another 500 million watching live in 140 countries, we were paralyzed. Maybe that was the reason we didn't actually say anything. I look at the video now and it's striking. Here was a moment, maybe the moment, for us to describe her, to dig down deep and find the words to remind the world of her sterling qualities, her once a millennium magic, her disappearance. But we didn't. I'm not suggesting a full-blown homage was in order, but maybe some personal tribute? We offered no such thing. It was still too much, too raw. The only thing I said that was real, that came from my heart, was a shout out to my team. I'd also like to take this opportunity to say hi to all the guys in A Squadron Household Cavalry who are serving out in Iraq at the moment. I wish I was there with you. I'm sorry I can't be. But to you, And everybody else on operations at the moment, we like to say, stay safe. So, Elton John, Duran Duran, and a host of other people who were really, really close to Princess Diana, and out of deference for Princess Diana or Lady Diana Spencer, they were asked to perform at the King's coronation concert, and they all declined. Our final snippet today that we are going to read is of two more participants in the King's coronation ceremony yesterday. And here are Harry's recollections of them in his book, Spare. On the eve of the wedding, Willie and I had dinner at Clarence's house with Paul. Also present were James and Thomas, Willie's best men. The public had been told I was to be the best man, but that was a barefaced lie. The public expected me to be the best man, and thus the palace saw no choice but to say that I was. In truth, Willie didn't want me giving a best man speech. He didn't think it safe to hand me a live mic and put me in a position to go off script. I might say something wildly inappropriate. He wasn't wrong. Also, the lie gave cover to James and Thomas, two civilians, two innocents. Had they been outed as Willie's best men, the rabid press would have chased them, tracked them, hacked them, investigated them, ruined their families' lives. Both chaps were shy, quiet. They couldn't handle such an onslaught and shouldn't be expected to. Willie explained all this to me, and I didn't blink. I understood. We even had a laugh about it, speculating about the inappropriate things I might have said in my speech. And so the pre-wedding dinner was pleasant, jolly, despite Willie visibly suffering from standard groom jitters. Thomas and James forced him to down a couple of rum and cokes, which did seem to settle his nerves. Meanwhile, I regaled the company with tales of the North Pole. Paul was very interested and sympathetic about the discomfort of my frost-nipped ears and cheeks, and it was an effort not to overshare and tell him also about my equally tender genital area. Upon arriving home, I've been horrified to discover that my nether regions were frost-nipped as well, and while the ears and cheeks were already healing, the dodger wasn't. It was becoming more of an issue by the day. After dinner, we moved to the TV room and watched the news. Reporters were interviewing folks who were camped outside Clarence's house in hopes of getting a front row seat at the wedding. We went to the window and looked at the thousands of them in tents and bedrolls up and down the mall, which runs between Buckingham Palace and Trafalgar Square. Many were drinking, singing. Some were cooking meals on portable stoves. Others were wandering about, chanting, celebrating, as if they were getting married in the morning. Willie, rum warm, shouted, "We should go and see them." He texted his security team to say he wanted to do so. The security team answered, strongly advised against. "No," he shot back. "It's the right thing to do. I want to go out there. I need to see them." He asked me to come. He begged. I could see in his eyes that the rum was hitting really hard. He needed a wingman. Painfully familiar role for me, but all right. We went out, walked the edge of the crowd, shaking hands. People wished Willie well and told him they loved him, loved Kate. They gave us both the same teary smiles, the same looks of fondness and pity we seen in that day in August 1997. I couldn't help but shake my head. Here it was, the eve of Willie's big day, one of the happiest of his life, and there was simply no avoiding the echoes of his worst day, our worst day. I looked at him several times. His cheeks were bright crimson, as if he was the one with frostnip. Maybe that was the reason we bade farewell to the crowd, turned in early. He was tipsy. But also emotionally, physically, we were both all in. We needed rest. I was shocked, therefore, when I went to collect him in the morning, and he looked as if he hadn't slept a wink. His face was gaunt, his eyes red. You okay? Yeah, yeah, fine. But he wasn't. He was wearing the bright red uniform of the Irish Guards, not his household cavalry frock coat uniform. I wondered if that was the matter. He'd asked Granny if he could wear his household cavalry kit, and she turned him down. As the heir, he must wear the #1 ceremonial, she decreed. Willie was glum at having so little to say in what he wore to get married, and having his autonomy taken from him on such an occasion. He told me several times that he felt frustrated. I assured him that he looked bloody smart in the harp of Ireland, with the crown imperial and the forage cap with the regimental motto, "Who shall separate us?" It didn't seem to make an impression. I, on the other hand, did not look smart, nor did I feel comfortable in my blues and royals uniform, which protocol dictated that I wear. I'd never worn it before, and hoped not to wear it again any time soon. It had huge shoulder pads and huge cuffs, and I can imagine people saying, "Who's this idiot?" I felt like a kid's version of Johnny Bravo. We climbed into a plum-covered Bentley. Neither of us said anything as we waited for the driver to pull out. As the car pulled away, finally, I broke the silence. "You reek." The aftermath of last night's rum. I jokingly cracked a window, pinched my nose, offered him some mints. The corners of his mouth bent slightly upward. After 2 minutes, the Bentley stopped. "Short trip," I said. I peered out of the window. Westminster Abbey. As always, my stomach lurched. I thought, nothing like getting married in the same place where you did your mom's funeral. I shot a glance at Willie. Was he thinking the same thing? We went inside, shoulder to shoulder. I looked again at his uniform, his cap. Who shall separate us? We were soldiers, grown men, but walking with that same tentative boyish gait as we trailed Mummy's coffin. Why did the adults do that to us? We marched into the church, down the aisle, made for a side room off the altar called the crypt. Everything in that building spoke of death. It wasn't just the memories of Mummy's funeral. More than 3,000 bodies lay beneath us, behind us. They were buried under the pews, wedged into the walls. War heroes and poets, scientists and saints, the cream of the Commonwealth, Isaac Newton, Charles Dickens, Chaucer, plus 13 kings and 18 queens. They were all interred there. It was still so hard to think of Mummy in the realm of death. Mummy, who danced with Travolta, who quarreled with Elton, who dazzled the Reagans. Could she really be in the great beyond with the spirits of Newton and Chaucer? Between these thoughts of Mummy and death, I was in danger of becoming as anxious as the groom. So I started pacing, shaking my arms, listening to the crowd murmuring in the pews. They'd been seated 2 hours before we arrived. "You just know many of them need a pee," I said to Willie, trying to break the tension. No reaction. He stood up, started pacing too. I tried again. "The wedding ring. Oh no, where is it? Where did I put the bloody thing?" Then I pulled it out. Whew! He gave a smile, went back to his pacing. I couldn't have lost that ring even if I wanted to. A special kangaroo pouch had been sewn inside my tunic. My idea, actually. That was how seriously I took the solemn duty and honor of bearing it. I don't recall leaving the crypt. I don't recall walking out to the altar. I have no memory of the readings or the removing of the ring or handing it to my brother. The ceremony is mostly a blank in my mind. I recall Kate walking down the aisle looking incredible, and I recall Willie walking her back up the aisle. And as they disappeared through the door into the carriage that would convey them to Buckingham Palace and to the eternal partnership they pledged, I recall thinking, goodbye. I love my new sister in law. I felt she was more sister than in law, the sister I never had and always wanted, and I was pleased that she'd forever be standing by Willie's side. But in my gut, I couldn't help feeling that this was yet another farewell under this horrid roof, and another sundering. The brother I escorted into Westminster Abbey that morning was gone forever. Who could deny it? He'd never again be first and foremost Willie. We'd never again ride together across the Lesotho countryside with capes blowing behind us. We'd never again share a horsey smelling cottage while learning to fly. Who shall separate us? Life, that's who. Well, that was quite interesting, wasn't it? Mm. And you know what? I hadn't really thought about the fact that all of those weddings, or the weddings that took place inside of Westminster Abbey, I kind of forgot the fact that it's a lot of people buried there too. I mean, he just ran down the list of people that are buried in Westminster Abbey. And like he said, they're buried in underneath the floors, they're buried in the walls, they're all over that spot. As a matter of fact, for the coronation was at Westminster Abbey. I guess that's something about life, huh? The circle of life. How even though we're busy living our lives, doing the things that we do, death is constantly with us. We don't think about it all the time, but it's there, right? So, what did you think about that reading? What did you think about those segments that I had the opportunity to read to you? Very interesting, wasn't it? It sounds like Prince Harry is a very sad young man, huh? Very sad young man. Or maybe he's not sad. Maybe he's just very introspective, But I mean, I guess with the fact that the fact that he lost his mom at an early age, and he really didn't, um, he really did not have a support system to deal with it, and then he grew up, and then he fought in the Gulf War, and it's just so many things going on. So many, I should say Afghanistan, so many different things that happened to this young man, that it's a wonder that his life turned out the way that it did. And his life is now over. Not by a long shot, because now he's someone's father. And hopefully, the lessons that he learned as a young person, hopefully, he will not visit the mistakes that he believed the adults in his life made when it came to raising him. Hopefully, he won't make those same mistakes when it comes to raising Archie and Lilibet. And maybe he can be the father to his children that he wanted his dad to really be for him. All right, so that is the end of today's book club. I hope you enjoyed it, especially in light of the fact that this is coronation weekend. And if you would like, I could possibly come back into the tiny studio in a few days and read some more snippets to you from Prince Harry's book Spare. What do you think about that? Drop down in the comment section and let me know if you would like for me to continue some more snippets. Continue reading to you some more snippets from Spare. Maybe next time um, we'll get into how he met Megan, even though we already know. I mean, they told us, but we can, maybe there's some more nuggets from the relationship that we can glean from Harry's perspective in Spare. Well, thank you so much for hanging out with me today in a tiny studio. Don't forget to press that thumbs up button to let the YouTube guys know that you enjoyed hanging out with me in a tiny studio today. And as I said before, if you have any questions, concerns, or comments, please drop down in the comment section and let's get the discussion started. Don't forget to follow me over at my blog at Simply Nails Tiny Studio. The link is in the description box. I will see you next time here in the tiny studio. Bye bye.